How do you define creativity?
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
Exactly. Yeah, I like to like get in the weeds of like
Absolutely.
running because you said you built an agency, right?
Just built it. I was just telling Michaela, yesterday we just launched the socials.
Oh
Right?
wow.
So
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I just did that. We just been very quiet with it because we just been putting a lot of work in the back end, right? And I'm too perfectionist to just put something and not like go on top of it. So yeah, man. I mean, should I go from the top on that, or are we
Yeah,
on already?
yeah, no, we're already recording.
Oh,
But
nice.
I asked you that because you said you were building an agency, but before that, you were freelance, or when did you kind of start getting into the creative space?
Man, okay, yeah, let's go back. Let's
Yeah,
go
let's
way
do it.
back. So, like, I'm Cuban born and raised, and I got here when I was 20, right? But I've always loved drawing, and like back in the day, anime, Dragon Ball, and all that cool stuff. Somehow, I was able to like get it over there in Cuba, right? Like VHS,
Right.
the original Naruto we got in VHS as well over there. So
And you
imagine-
like had already known about that, or how did
no,
you?
it's just one of those things. You're growing up as a kid, and like your friends are just kind of like you can't see anything there. You can only see the Cuban like muñequitos over there.
Yeah.
So when you got something fire like that, you were like, "What's that?" And then I remember Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. We got the VHS tapes, and that's like black market tapes or whatever. And I was like, "Dude, this is amazing." And I started drawing since I was like super super little and trying to get that going. And my parents kind of noticed that I like drawing, so I was kind of like, "Okay." And they kind of like got me colors and a lot of like paper whenever we could. Again, like very limited, but always loved doing that. I learned how to do Goku and Vegeta when I was a little kid and all the Dragon Ball Z things, and then I would do it at school. And then I just kept doing it as a hobby forever. Over there, what I had to do, the normal life is like you go to school, whatever, you do your thing, and then because Cuba is such a complicated place, uh, when I was being raised up, the only ways that you could go to like university and things like that was if you were to like a special school, like for sports, for music, or for like very, very few people that would get in, right? So I did sports. I did swimming off since I was in fourth grade and did that for like 11 years competitively. And then I did water polo because it was the only way to like guarantee that you would get into a school and you wouldn't go into like a campo to the farms.
Right.
Because yeah,
We could be a whole
we
episode on
could
that.
we could do like a whole thing just in Cuba, right? But yeah, I love doing that, and then eventually there's not that many career options over there, but there's design, right? Or architecture. I was like in between those two, and I started taking it way more seriously later on. Like, okay, let me actually learn perspective and let me learn to draw and blah blah blah. And decided to go for design because like architecture was just too rigid. Like I just like I love lines and I'm very organized as a guy, but I wanted a little bit more freedom there and a little bit more creativity. And I actually loved like logos and branding ever since I was a kid. I didn't know it was branding, but I loved that. I was kind
But
of like,
Cuba back in the day, man, is like
dude, yeah. I mean,
beautiful.
I'm 92.
Yeah.
I'm 92, so I was born right on that like the special period and all. I don't
Yeah.
remember that stuff, but I was born in that weird place as well where it's not as bad as it is right now, right? It was bad, but you could live and you could be on the streets and it was okay, right? Like.
But when you look at the buildings of like back in the day, like
Dude,
it's
it's
the
beautiful.
architecture and the
It's
signs, the
beautiful.
branding, like everything is
Like it's funny because you never notice, and I never noticed until I got here and I became older because also like you're also used to seeing them very beautifully built but destroyed, right? So you can't really like enjoy the full like beauty of it. But I went to Argentina, Buenos Aires, last year, and Buenos Aires has the same type of architecture with like the stone buildings and kind of
Yeah.
like colonial with like the iron fences and all that and the balconies. And I was like out of it. I was kind of like, dude, I feel like I'm back home. That's
Yeah.
so dope. But it was a good time, and we had no internet, we had none of the
Right.
fancy stuff, none of that. So eso era mata perreo. We would just be going on the streets and until 10 p.m. and you could walk the streets no problem and hang out with friends. So it was a good upbringing, even though obviously it's crazy,
yeah.
it's wild. It's the stories are real.
No, 100%.
But yeah, like anyways, that's where it started. I was always into drawing, and then I was kind of like I need to study something, right? Let me go for design, and I worked really hard on that. Getting into the design university there, ISDI, that just it's so bad in Cuba that university just like got destroyed. Like it just fell apart.
Collapsed.
It just collapsed. It just
Wow.
collapsed. The east wing, I believe, where I used to
That's
take class.
crazy
That's crazy.
to see your school that you went to.
And it's
just-
one of the biggest ones in Cuba too. It's a university. It's one of the big ones, right? So, but I did that there, and then on my first year of design already in school and kind of like learning all of that, the the opportunity to come over presented itself, you know, through a visa. I was underage, so because my mom was here, I was able to get like a visa that allowed me to come here and just kind of like, you know, become a resident and wait a year and a half. So I was very lucky to do that, and I just had to restart at 20. You know, like come over here. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it or not.
Because everything that you study over there, although obviously you learned, it doesn't.
Yeah, and life
Apply.
and life too, right? I was finally like at peace where I was at in terms of like friendships and
Yeah,
relationships,
of
generally
course.
speaking, and the way that I was behaving, and you know, I was growing up and things were looking good, right? I was finally fitting in a lot of spots that I didn't before, and then suddenly, boom, dude, you gotta go,
Start over.
and you gotta, yeah, you got 3 months to think over if you want to do this or not, and start over, and boom, here I am.
But you were excited to come over here.
At first, I was very, very excited. A lot of things were promised by family and friends and things like that that didn't materialize afterwards. Family dramas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So at first, it was all like, you know, like rose tinted glasses. Hey, it's gonna be amazing. You're gonna go through this. You're gonna go through
Land
that.
of
Don't
the
worry about where you
dreams.
live. You're gonna stay with us. Blah blah blah. Got here, not it at all. You know, first year sleeping on my grandma's like couch and all that just to make it happen, and then just like arguments here and there. Some paperwork and stuff the year that I got here changed, so I also had to wait like longer. I couldn't wait for certain permits. Washing a lot of cars in that first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grinding.
Grinding, dude, grinding. I mean, I didn't know like in Cuba, even though it's such a poor country, right? You grow up just like kids go to school and study, right? They don't really work unless it's very, very bad in the household, right? So I did my things here and there, and I learned how to use technology and all these things, and I would sell certain things like a drawing or something, but I was never forced to work, right? But I did a lot of sports, so at least I had the discipline, and I had to be like, yeah, dude, you're spending the next year, you're waking up before, taking a bus all the way to like first and like Flagler and First right there, or like 11th, sorry, and just like washing those cars, making a little bit of money, you know, and you start
humbling,
your life
though.
like that. Yeah,
It's humbling, especially when you come from a country like Cuba, but then to come thinking, you know,
it'll do it.
yeah.
It's really humbling, but honestly, you know, it was amazing because over there, you know, you grow up and I'm telling you, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna do this and I'll do that, and that's because your family like really, you know, makes you want to do those things, but there's no real future in a lot of aspects. So designers don't do design, you know, they'll
Yeah.
design things for, you know, the government or television over there, or like it's very limited. You know,
Yeah.
freedom of speech is not a thing over there. So
Your creativity is not.
yeah, so like when
as
I
free.
thought about it, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna spend the next, you know, I study this hard for all this time, and what am I gonna be able to do when I finish that, right? So I felt that prison like very early on. I was kind of like, shit, and you know, here it's always painted at the place of like freedom, and you can do everything you want, and you can grow as much as you want, and that's what we know in Cuba over there, and the people that vacation over there tell you, dude, America's amazing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be dope. You're gonna love it. And they go with the gold chains and the things and the chicle, and you're like, dude, what? And you know, obviously, then you grow up and you find out that nothing's perfect anywhere that you go.
Right.
But this is still like the place, right?
No, I've recently heard someone say something like, because sometimes you get wrapped up in the bubble of living here, and there's so many things going on, and you're like, oh, but this is wrong and this is wrong, and they say they're gonna do this, but we gotta fix this. But then you hear like other people's perspective, and like the American dream, like that concept to people that live elsewhere, that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Like I forgot where the person was from, but he was saying, he's like, oh, I like Americans because they like to dream.
Yeah.
Like they have big dreams. Like we don't even know what dreams are. We just go to school, go to work.
It's crazy, dude. I mean, I'll tell you two things, right? Before I get like super serious. It took me like a year and a half, maybe 2 years living here to wake up one day and realize, shit, I can go watch a movie or like go have dinner by myself. Like I have some money, I already got a car, I can do this. Nobody's stopping me, you know, like nothing's stopping me from like just go and do something as simple as having like dinner outside, because that's not something we grew up with, right? Even if you have money in Cuba, there's not like 1,000 restaurants, and like kids don't really like drive. There weren't that many cars, you know, so it's just completely different, right? And then you get here and you're like, I can do whatever I want, bro. Whatever, really, like you can do whatever you want. As long as you, honestly, the thing about this place is that it's like, it's unheard of how much you have to work, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta put in like insane hours, and it's not guaranteed that you're gonna make it, and that's tough. You know, it's a little bit on the extreme on that side. So
Especially
I know,
in the creative field.
dude, our field is crazy. Yeah, we'll get into that, right? But but in general, right? Like I remember like that first job, like washing cars and all that. But you learn a lot of lessons because you wash the car and then you would see the guy next to you, and he would just be lazy about it, and then you would be like, no, fuck it, I'm here, I'm gonna try to make some money, and you would do a really good job, and then automatically you would see the change in the attitude from the client. So you would have an old couple that was kind of like, wow, this is the first time that somebody's done for this. They've also done like, I don't know, like take the little brush and clean the edges of the details, right? Like not included, and they will like give you a tip, and you're already like, oh, that's what's appreciated here and valued here. I mean, there's cheap people everywhere, right?
Of course.
But yeah, and that's a big one. You have it here like super big. I think another one that people like really forget nowadays is the ability of like just be yourself and just like do and say and like move the things around that you want to move, right? Going back to college, there's been a lot of protests, obviously, like lately and all that, right? And I look at those protests and I'm like, that's crazy. But then I see people that are like, no, you can't do anything anymore. You're doing this, you're doing that. When I was in college, they put us all the classroom and they set us down and kind of like, okay, you're gonna go to a protest right now. You're gonna go protest. But you're gonna go against Las Damas de Blanco. It's like the ladies in white. It's a group of old ladies, literally old ladies wearing white, that were the wives of political prisoners in Cuba.
Wow.
And they straight up told us, you gotta go there and you're gonna like stop it. And if you're gonna throw a stone and then you're gonna go this, and they will give us things to do to hurt the other people, right? And I remember like me and 3 friends were kind of like, I ain't doing this. Like that could be my abuela, that could be my grandma, whatever. Almost got kicked out of school automatically. Like in the spawn, it's kind of like, oh, you're not, so what? Are you like at the center? So it very quickly became the same, like, are you us versus them type thing with old ladies. And I was in a big deal of a problem for like 3 months after that. I had to say that I was gonna go, and then I had to sneak out and just like disappear from the manifestation and all that, because they will force you to do that. And if you don't agree with that, or if you didn't go to the May 1st march, they would make your life hell, bro. And they could do it. They could just be like, you're not going to study anymore. We can.
Yeah, they know they have that over you because you're going to school and your kids.
18-year-old kid, and there was kind of like, yeah, either you hurt people or like you do this. So watching how some of the things unfold here, whether you agree or not, it's kind of like at least you're still in a place where you can say something, bro.
Yeah.
Because like it can get real bad, and I have friends like that had to get out too because of that in university. After you made all that like hard work to like get there, and you're kind of like just something like that, boom.
It's worth more having the freedom over here than
absolutely, man. Just don't abuse it,
Yeah.
Don't be a dick about it. Wait, can I?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and I mean we've been hearing those stories, especially recently now with the play, the Walls Have Ears that we've been producing. That is like sometimes you forget how good we have it here.
Yeah, man.
Like hearing political prisoners speak of like their experience and what they went through makes like your stresses in life and like clients and this and that seem like nothing.
It'll make it change. But like at the end of the day, it's all a spectrum, right? Like there's different like sides of that. It's not black and white. And what I like to do is just kind of like look at it like that, right? Because over there, we're born and raised on black and white.
Yeah.
And like if you didn't agree with that view, like you were already like outsider, right? Even if you were really good at school, even if you were really good at sports, at art, whatever, you're very much like not even left or right. It's like you're either with the government or not, right?
Yeah.
Even in small ways.
There's no in between.
Yeah, man. So like here, at least I feel like I was welcomed in that way, and I was able to like agree to disagree.
You know? How did you like, I guess, be able to change your mindset when coming over here to like pursue your creative career, knowing like you've kind of brought up a certain way all your life, and now you have this quote unquote freedom? Yeah. Like, how did you?
It was a little bit wild. I mean, my parents and the people that I grew up with, we all had a similar path in that sense, right? Because regardless, again, of like how the politics were in the country, at least as I was growing up, we still had certain values that we shared throughout the community, at least in like the whole Havana city, which is a small place. So my parents still like raised me up to like just do really good at school and just be respectful, and you're just like standard traditional, I would say, like Hispanic, like like growing up, respect your elders, etc., etc. And then my friends, we kind of like, we mess around. We were kids and all that, but I always had like a solid group of friends, even if it was just acquaintances. You know, you could find a solid group of people. So it wasn't that. I've seen some people that grew up afterwards in Cuba, and it's way harder for them because those values don't exist. So that's a different story, right? But you know, those values are the same here or in Cuba or in Europe, right? If you grow up a certain way and you're honest and you work hard and do these things. So for me, it was more about the fact that I know that now that is gonna actually be a value that is gonna be respected by society.
Yeah.
Whereas in Cuba, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like you couldn't make a living as a doctor, for example, being an honest doctor, right? That's the type of mentality there. So like it's just that switch from like, oh, not only do I get to do what I want right now if I work really hard, but I don't have to bend backwards. I don't have to do things that I don't want to do in that sense, right? That part was easy. The difficult part was kind of like falling in love again with design because I fell out of love in that school with design because I was kind of like, I can't believe this is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously in Cuba, you know, it's completely different than here. And then it took me forever. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to Miami-Dade College and I was like, maybe animation, maybe, I don't know, psychology. I always liked psychology, but I don't know. I was always really good at math, so I thought maybe engineering, but I found Chris Duck, funny enough.
Oh,
Back in the
shout
day.
out.
This is like forever. Yeah. And I saw the first videos that where he had still with, oh man, what's his partner back in the day? Jose.
The one that got him into doing
Yeah,
videos.
the one
I
that got him
remember.
into the videos.
Yeah.
They were doing the future and all that, and that guy reminded me of why I love design so much and like the strategy and the puzzle building of it, right? Which is one of my favorite things of design. And funny enough, I was kind of like, what am I gonna lose? You know, let me go at it, let me do it. And at that time, I was playing in some metal bands here in Miami. Oh shit! And I was kind of like, amazing. I'll just do the designs. You know, I was already doing some stuff. I'm kind of like, yeah, I did the album cover. I did some T-shirts. I did this. I like it. Let me get back into that, right? And mind you, this is like 2012, right? 2013, 2013, something like that. And slowly, I just kind of like picked it up. So by the time I finished the associates again, I was sure. I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do design and I'm gonna focus on branding, which is my end strategy. I love strategy.
That's
and just
sick.
figuring out the back end and
That's kind of how like I got into design. It was through DJing.
yeah.
It's like I started DJing, but then I just like, oh, let me design this. Like I can't afford to pay anyone else.
Right.
But then you kind of start falling in love with it because it's like
That is the
you
hustle.
can control every part of it. Whereas like I had to, instead of relying on someone and try to tell them my vision of what I'm trying to do, it's like I could just put it out of my brain.
Yeah.
So I think that's what kind of like got me in love with it too. But you said you like a strategy more.
I love strategy. It just goes with who I am as a person. So
Can you explain that a little bit? I feel like some people don't understand like brand
Yeah.
strategy
Yeah,
as a skill.
so shit. Everybody's a little bit different, even as a creative, right? And every creative has their own kind of like way of looking at things. But there are also proven ways in which things have developed in the past. And there's also history, right, of how things work. And there's also this whole world out there, right, that came before us. So, and I was always interested in the psychological aspects of design as well, right? And that's a whole world out there. So when I started getting into design, right, I was always like, I came late to the party, so there's always gonna be somebody that was way more skilled than I was, right? Making logos, making identities, or even actually being a designer or like an artist, right? But I thought that there's other ways to just be really good at what you do. So while I'm building this creative set of like just getting better at the technical aspect of it, let me also learn about like what makes people like things, right? And you get into that theory, and I love that. I'm the type of kid that would just like sit down, and I still do this as an adult. I sit in a place, and I love looking at what people do when they get to a place and how they sit, and like, are they facing the wall? Are they facing the art? And how many people are here? What's the age? And I just do it naturally. As a kid, I did it for entertainment and just to like do things and like just like at a party and like look who it was and like whatever. And as an adult, it's just because everybody's super interesting.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of came across. It's kind of, okay, how do I make something that's not only like pretty, but that actually can convey a message? And that's kind of like where everything started with the strategy, right? And also because I've never considered design to be art in itself. I think it's a little bit hot take.
Here we go.
I don't think that design and art are obviously the same things. And I was always more like, I want to be a designer. I don't want to be an artist per se. I want to make things that serve a purpose. I'm very practical like that. And when I mean a purpose, I mean like a more objective, like,
Solve a problem, kind of.
yes, problem solving is the way to say it, definitely. So and everything just kind of like started pointing towards what's behind the curtain, right? What's behind the little logo or the color decision or this or that, right? And why do this and do that, and you learn. And dude, it's amazing. Like, I love that, right? And you get to a point where you can make decisions based on that can have clear results in the real world, right? So it's no longer, I think this looks better because my gut is telling me. But not only is that the case, but I have examples of things like this, or how nothing like this has ever been done before in the past, and why this could work, and so and so. And it helps. It just helps. For me, it makes me more creative, more effective, and it's also it makes it more fun too, because it becomes a puzzle, right? And you start seeing it as kind of like you can fit different things in there.
Yeah, I think the psychology of design is overlooked like heavily sometimes. Do you think that, like, do you have trouble? Not, I don't want to use the word explaining it to clients, but like sometimes they don't understand because you know you could go somewhere and get a design quick, or like that, like, hey, I need this for this, like, here's the money, boom, very transactional. But then there's some people where, like yourself or like me, but I've also been guilty of the other in the past, where it's like, boom, I got you, here you go. It looks good. That's why. But then that having to explain, but yeah, I made this choice because X, Y, Z. And then they're just like, yeah, I don't care.
And some people are never going to care about that. It doesn't make it less true though, right? So at that point you have to, that's where it gets real. That's where it becomes a job, right? Like, that's where your passion, you need to also understand that you need to solve a problem, and the problem that guy has, you're not gonna solve with strategy, because they're not gonna do it correctly. So at that point, you can either step back or you just take what you can. In my case, you know, if I was for the first, like, I don't know, like 5 years of just doing freelance, I never thought about strategy, even though I applied it a little bit, right? But you can never sell it. And even Chris Doe, when I was looking at all these things and I found out that was strategy, right? These things that I really like doing, that had a name, right? That guy was struggling with that, and it's kind of like, these clients don't want to pay for that, and I'm kind of like, like, damn. But truth is, like, some people get it, some people don't get it. Some business owners just don't see marketing that way, and that's a completely different thing. And that's the battle, right? The battle is, how do you communicate subjective value objectively, right? And if you do it well, and you can learn how to do it well, then people, even if they don't get it, they're kind of like, okay, let me follow your lead, right? But some people are not gonna like that at all. You know, I had clients that are kind of like, no, I just want to design. Don't worry about this. I just like that color. Forget about color theory, accessibility on the web. You know, like, it is what it is. And then, depending on where you are in your career, you can say yes or no, or you can guide them towards the answer or not, right?
It's almost like it goes even to psychology of people. You have to understand how to pick and choose your battles. Yeah. Or even you take your clients.
Nowadays, I don't talk about strategy as like a service. It's included in what we do, you know, because it's just the way we operate. And then at that point, you take it or you don't take it. And I'll send you to somebody else, right? That can handle maybe a little bit more of the labor. And the reason for that is, at the end of the day, like, strategy is just a fancy word to just grounding the company and what you want the brand to do, right? And just give them a pathway. If I'm designing a logo or like a visual identity for a brand, right? And they don't know where they're going, and they don't know the audience, and they don't know, like, all these important things. How's the market share right now? Like, what's the pivot that they can take? Competitive advantages, like, you know, all the people call it fluff sometimes, right? Because, like, they have an idea of what it is. Yeah, I know that I'm gonna be for people between 35 and 50 years old, you know, mostly white women that are gonna use skincare, right? You're kind of like, sure, that's a little bit, but then you get granular, right? And you can get very granular about it. And that's where growth comes in a lot of places, and that's where the strategy happens, but that's also where we go in. Like at that point, if I know who really we're trying to guide to you, we can be way more effective at creating things that help do that, right? Um, and I think that that's what differentiates, you know, brands that stick around and don't stick around, right? You know, like because it takes commitment and a lot of compromise from the stakeholders. They need to be they need to be down to make a choice and say like, if we are for the 35 to 50-year-old, then we're out of TikTok, right? And by what I mean by out of TikTok is not the platform itself, but just the audience and the way to reach them, right? And same, you know, like why would you want to be on Instagram if you're like an accounting firm? You probably want to be on LinkedIn, but that's just one decision out of like 1,000, right? Like your content should probably look different. You should probably look different, and that's where we take it off from now on. So every time we get somebody in there, we're already having, you know, like obviously onboarding calls. You know, you have a discovery, you'll have a kickoff, but then we'll always be doing strategy at different levels. You know, some people don't have anything, some people will have some, and then we'll be flexible about that, but the work needs to get done. If not, like you can't promise anything. You can't just be like, I can promise you like a 3x, you know, brand awareness on this. You don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe I made it pink and like your audience hates pink.
Yeah, and I think that part of strategy or even just like ideating is like super undervalued, and some people, they, like you said, they might not even have an idea of what they're going for, and then they realize like you're basically almost a founder in their business at some point because you're guiding them to the whole thing from the design perspective, but then they're the questions you're asking them, they're like realizing like, oh, maybe we should do this, maybe we can pivot here, maybe we can do that. If they've never been asked those questions themselves.
Yeah. And that's the goal and the value there, right? Like when because you're not trying to sell, and that's something that's happened to me like in past experiences where like a lot of agencies and things, they'll sell you a service because they can sell you a service, but it's not as much as what you call it or like how much you charge for it. It's just like the work needs to get done, you know, and the discovery needs to happen. There's a lot of times where I've noticed certain like discrepancies inside the same stakeholders for the same company, right? In terms of like what the vision is and kind of like what they should be focusing on in the next year or the next 3 years, right? And you might not think that it's important right away because in reality, there's other more pressing things like how we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
But the reality is that eventually that might be like a big gap that you need to bridge. So if you can bridge that gap early and kind of like get compromised, let's say that you have a company that has like, I don't know, 10 stakeholders. Impossible that everybody wants the same thing. Impossible. And if you imagine, like then you present a logo and like 5 like it, 5 don't like it randomly, right? Yeah. So you need to get compromise and buy-in from the beginning, and then you need to get clarity in their heads as well. So like, why do you care if it's a certain way? Is it because it's your personal preference, or is it because you have an insight on the audience or on the product that we don't have, right? Oh, well, we really want to be elegant and blah, 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 blah. And then you go a little bit deeper and you ask them why. And then sometimes the answer is like, oh, well, because that's what my competitor is doing. Or sometimes the answer is very deep and it's kind of like, well, because I believe that, I don't know, my industry is full of this type of behavior and I want to change that behavior and disrupt that, right? And sometimes they know it like deep in their gut, but they've never verbalized it. And then as a founder, you need to verbalize it to the rest of the team, right? And it has to be clear throughout like high level, mid level, low level. And then the best way to do that is just being clear about it, having missions, statements, having positioning statements, you know, having it in writing and just compromising and committing to that, like, hey, this is what we do right now. Ooh, I wonder if that sounds a lot. So yeah, you know, that's where the real value comes, because you're not gonna see it in day one, but you're definitely gonna see it in year 1 and year 2 and year 3.
Nah, it's super, super important. Is there things that that maybe you learned in Cuba that you either took with you or you had to like, wow, that was not even like kind of habits you had to let go? I mean,
propaganda. Propaganda.
I was gonna say design wise, but it could be.
Yeah, I mean, Cuba was a real good place to grow up in. Like, especially after going through school here and seeing a lot of like my peeps and like people my age that grew up here. It's just the necessity just makes you have to be more creative, makes you have to be more resilient and all those things. So yeah, a lot of those. But like in the design aspect of things and like the creative aspect of things is that communication is very powerful, and like you don't notice how powerful it is until you start breaking away from it, right? So like I will still sing songs like from Cuba that when I sing them right now, I'm just kind of like these guys were brainwashing us, man. It's crazy, but that song's stuck in your head, right? And that
Yeah.
is a song that was like promoting certain values and certain stories. Same with the designs, right? Same with the characters or the animated shows that we were watching there. So like when I started paying attention to those things, it's kind of like all of this has messages, even like on the subliminal level. And that applies to everything, right? And that intentionality you can use for good or for bad. And kind of like it's a tool, right? That also means that you can achieve it. Like it just proves that it's real, that you can influence behavior by a certain use of music or a certain use of color or a certain use of type, you know. Very early on I realized that I didn't like what I was seeing,
Yeah.
right? I was kind of like,
That's
oh man.
that's a crazy perspective though, because sometimes you hear like, oh, you know, design, the messaging, and like, what are you portraying? But like, you had a firsthand experience of like, oh, this works.
It's dude, it's absolutely, it's crazy. And then you grow up and you go and you learn a little bit about like, you know, the Soviets and the constructivism that they had, and it was super cool. And I, you know, at the university they would teach us that because we were very Soviet, you know, influence, right? And a little bit of Chinese, but not that much when I was growing up. And you would see all this like beautiful things, and we knew a little bit of Bauhaus, but they would just teach us enough so you wouldn't get into the old
Yeah.
politics of that. But we would see all these cool things, and then you would see the posters, and you're kind of like, wow, cool posters. But when you start realizing how they would depict certain things, and then you get here in America and you do pinups, right? And then you get all those things, and then you go to North Korea and like it's only like the guy statue, and just like everybody has to have like a poster of the guy. All of that is like at the end of the day by design,
Yeah.
you know. So it's powerful. It's a lot of stuff.
That's crazy. And you think it, like we were talking about earlier, like certain values and things that you grew up with and then learning them here. Now, when you deal with clients, especially now with an agency, is that something that you look at when you're taking on clients? Like,
Yeah.
do you not take work if they're not aligned or?
I'll tell you what really got me into building my own thing. And that should explain a lot. So I am very idealistic in a lot of ways to like a fault. Again, like I'm the type of guy that I'm not gonna throw a stone at an old lady, and I'm not. But there were people that would go and do that, right? Because they have no choice or whatever you want to say it. So I was the type of guy that I would like find a way around things that I disagree with, and that also made me strong to say no when I have to say no, right? And my experience at agencies and in the creative world here is that there was a lot of dishonesty. Man, I don't want to say dishonesty because it's not even like that. It's more like the culture, the hustle culture is so strong, and it's also a little bit toxic, especially here in Miami, right? So people would like do business up front, but in the back they would be stabbing each other in the back and trying to steal the client or like overcharging the client. And then on the other end, the clients didn't appreciate marketing, so they were trying to stab you back. So it was a lot of this back and forth thing happening, right? And there were also a lot of like unnecessary, I would say, like bureaucracy, basically, right?
Yeah.
A lot of steps, a lot of things, blah 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 blah. I the more I was doing the work, the more I was kind of like realizing that at the last agency that I was working at, I was the art director, but I was really like brand operations. You know, I helped like rebuild it after like a big exodus of people. Like I started there and there was like, I don't know, it was like 10, 12 people. And then 2 months in, it was like 3 people. And I was like, I had to like rehire my boss, which it ended up not being like that. But, you know, like I ended up just going from junior art director to like just kind of like running it, you know, top level. But in that process, I had to do a lot of things that I did not like doing on a personal moral level. And I was kind of like, why does it have to be like that? And you would get your answers. It's not like, it's not for no reason. Sometimes there's reasons for things, right? But I didn't like some of those things. So fast forward, I'm kind of like, I'm taking notes, learn a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. I don't want to do it like this. I don't want to be the agency that hides fees from clients. I don't want to be the agency that is willing to sell you something knowing that it's not complete. For example, willing to sell you a website that doesn't have SEO because you didn't pay for that or because you wanted to be cheap and cut it off, right? I didn't want to be the agency either that just did mediocre work just for the money. And I didn't like the transactional side of it on like I'm here for the project, done, bounce, right? I don't know if anybody like in the audience can relate as a designer, right? If we have any brand designers that listen to this, but the worst feeling that you can get is that you've worked really hard for like 3 to 4 months building somebody a brand and getting everything up. And when they receive it in the first 3 months, it's destroyed. The socials don't make sense. The website, they went to somebody on Fiverr and then it messed up. They didn't see any sales. So you can't even put it on your portfolio. You can't even like brag about the good work that you did because it's kind of tainted. And that's a problem that I also wanted to see if I could figure out, right? Because sometimes it's the agency not doing a good work, but sometimes it's the client not wanting to spend more money, and sometimes it's just there's no real plan, right? So there's a lot of reasons why that could happen, but the fact stays, right? Like I don't know, like 40% of the brand, maybe 50% of the brands that I worked in the past, sobre todo starting out, they would just not be completed to the expectation that was set up, and that was always like a heart wrenching feeling.
Yeah.
Like, we worked so hard on this. I didn't sleep. We didn't get this going. We had to postpone this. And then these guys are like messing up. And it might be something silly, like look at that Instagram profile.
Yeah.
You're looking at it, it sucks, right? Or maybe it's something huge, like like they haven't made any sales, and they spent like 100K doing this whole brand process with an agency, and they haven't seen a single sale because they didn't. Neither the agency or the client position themselves correctly to succeed, right? Those are the things that I really wanted to like change in terms of the values, right? So when we started thinking about Rebelberry, we wanted to focus on, can we become like a longer term commitment for companies? Can we become kind of like a partner, like a transitional team in a way, where we can support you as you're building something, where you're in like a building stage, right? So if you haven't started yet, we build it so that we can guide you through strategy on the brand side. We can build the brand for you, and then we can support you establishing like touch points, like email marketing, social media, your web, like your ad campaigns on Meta and stuff like that, right? So how can we put together a group of people that can handle that for somebody at different stages and grow it, right? And the goal there would be, you're sacrificing a little bit of like profit in the short term for like a longer engagement that hopefully brings way more growth to the company that's working there. And then depends on how you negotiate. It's either equity or it's just like a salary, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what we're trying to do. And then inside of all that stuff is like a lot of little perks, right? So like, yeah, we do hourly, and of course there's some prices that are going to be hourly, but I value the results more than the hours, and everybody in the team does that. So there's been cases where it's kind of like we're way over, but we're going to make it happen, right? That does require a certain type of clientele, and does require a certain level of like commitment and trust, and that's proving to be a little bit difficult right now. I mean, we're pretty young, right? So we're still testing a lot of the services and the products, but the idea is there, and we've heard from a lot of CEOs and CMOs that it's just missing, right? Like a lot of agency people hate working with agencies. Like most of the CEOs that I've talked to hate working with agencies because it's like they're overcharged, or they're like slow, or they're like have all these like things in the middle that stop them. And to be honest, a lot of that is like to protect themselves, right? As a business, but a lot of that is just because like nobody's done it differently, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if that proves to be like a good way of going at it or not. But I truly believe that, especially now, like with 100,000 agencies out there, 100,000 new businesses and AI and all the craziness, what you need to commit is to like long-term success of the people that you're involved with. So no longer is it like, I'm going to give you a logo and a brand identity and a brand guidelines and bye-bye. It's more about like, we're going to be working together for the next maybe year, maybe 2 years. This first 6 months, we're going to build it. Second 6 months, we're going to establish some other things. And then on the year 2, we're going crazy, right? And that, in my experience, brings way better results and way more growth to like companies. And then finally, let's say that they don't want to work with us anymore. Ideally, what we're trying to build is like a transitional team handoff, where we say, okay, because we are working for this long amount of time together, let's say that you want to bring it in-house completely, and then you just want to stay with like maybe consulting or something with us, we'll build a team for you. We'll help you set up the place. So at this point, we're coming into the business with our tools, building it up how we know it works and how we know it scales, which takes compromise from the stakeholders as well. You know, they need to trust that what we're going to put in there, the systems and the processes work. And then once that's there, you just need to train the people to get there, and we're going to get you documents and all that. So that's the goal, that's the idea, and that's old school value. That's not very profitable in terms of short term.
I feel like the companies now are more inclined, like they want to work, like they still want to work with agencies and that, but it's like more of a personal, like almost like you're a person moving as an agency, but you're part of their business. It's not just like you said transactional. Because I think going back to what you said, like it's super relatable, especially in Miami, not just agencies, but in general. It's like, especially when you work on something so hard and it's like also design, so you're like visually seeing something, and then it doesn't come to like the expectation that you had it in your head when you were doing it with your team. And then you see, especially in Miami, where it's like people say things or promise things, but then internally or like the culture is not what they're putting out.
We're big bluffers, man. Like Miami is, it's
like it's for the sale. And sometimes you could tell that right away. Like, oh, you're just like, this is a sale for you as a transaction, versus like, oh no, like you really believe in this. Like you really want to build this. Like you really want to be part of this. So I think that's like, especially in Miami,
it's a big one. I think that we are, and again, like I'm pretty new considering that I've only been here for like 12 years, right? And now that I'm really getting into the weeds of it, and for the past, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that I've been really working in agencies and like building bigger things and like working multinationally with like other brands, right? The market for us is a little bit like behind. We don't have a lot of like we're not New York or we're not like LA in terms of like the design culture that there is. When you have a brand or like a business opening in New York, they go for the creative and they know the importance of marketing and all that. Here, we're kind of like a little bit behind. And culturally, especially, right? And that one's tough. That one's really tough because it means that you get a lot of like shadiness and you get a lot of like inconsistency, and then you get a lot of people that are just not informed, right? And that makes it way more difficult, right? Because like some people just want to like, oh, I just want to do it like this because like I've seen this and this and that, and they think that they can handle everything themselves and they don't delegate. Or they don't have the trust to like let people that have been doing this for a while do it, right? It's just a lot of that. I feel like it's just a new place and everything's bubbling, and you know, eventually everything will settle down, hopefully, and this becomes like a mecca where it's kind of like, hey, yeah, this is value. This is the way you can do things. It's kind of like set up, organized, and I don't know, maybe we can be part of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's getting there.
It's better than it was like 10 years ago, for sure. For sure, man. Like, Jesus.
Hey, you're talking about like AI and stuff. Like, how are you using that in your work or even in your business right now?
We're going crazy with it. Yeah, we're going crazy with it. Like, honestly, okay, that one's tough. Here's my take on AI. I don't like it to sell certain things, and I don't like it to, for example, I was working with a vitamin brand, right? We were doing like a lot of refresh with them and packaging and all that, but they had somebody else, like a big guys from like a big agency working on ads. And they were kind of like, let's jump on AI ads, right? And at first it was a great idea, and the way that it was pitched, it was great. But this little mistake kind of like cost them the whole ad campaign. And I saw that first, and I was kind of like, and we kind of called it, or at least we kind of had the discussion. And I remember mentioning it to the CMO at the place. But the truth is, like, we didn't know because it hasn't been done that much, right? Like a lot of AI. But for example, why it failed? Beautiful, like aspirational ad set, like super nice story, super good ideas, but they are marketing to parents and to kids. And I might be wrong, and I'm not a parent yet, right? But if I am a parent, I don't know if I want to go with a company that's selling me products through fake kids, right? Like, if are you showing me, even though it's aspirational and you don't want to have a kid doing these crazy things of like climbing a super mountain and all that, right? You don't want to do that, but because people don't trust it yet. So we had the discussion that if they would have done 50% of those ads with the real kids that they had, and because they had real kids, but they took them out because of 15-second ad, 30-second ad, they don't fit, blah 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 blah. If you would have had that real connection at first, and then you would have clearly transitioned into the dream aspect of that, and then that dream is AI, that's way more understandable than just the whole thing being AI. Because now it's kind of like, I'm not gonna give my kid a vitamin that I don't trust, and I don't trust something that it's not real. Because at least a real person in that ad, it's gonna tell you that somebody went through this, right, and did this. But now it's just like, oh yeah, I have like this and like 6 fingers coming out of like the product. So that's
or even just believing like, oh, a kid took this vitamin,
right? But so that, to me, that kind of like gets you both sides of the story, right? Like, people want to connect with brands and ads and all that. And AI can help you do that, but you need to know where to do it, right? Like, if you want something like really personal and intimate, you can't do AI. I'm sorry. Like, you need a human in there. You need the human story in there. You can use AI when you want to express other things, right? Or when you want to go fully creative. Like, for ourselves, I'm doing it just I'm taking it as raw materials. I'm creating like these pieces and putting them together, and there's still this human touch to the way that we're handling our own brand now, right? Where it's all touched by a human. But if you could spend, let's say, because I'm using like Greek statues and stuff, if you could take 30 minutes to produce a Greek statue hand in a certain pose versus telling your 3D guy to do it, right, in 3 to 4 hours, right? Like, you need to decide if it makes sense or not, right? Because he could be working on something different, or he could be working on the top level execution that you need. And then a social media post can handle the static, right? So you can use the tool and you can play with it and just find the places where it works. Just don't try to sell, like, I don't know, don't try to sell skincare with an AI model, right? Because like, what's the purpose? Like, where's the result? Where's the human touch?
I think that's the perfect example. The kid, like, something
that was crazy, man.
That like, maybe for an ad you're not thinking about it, but like a parent, for sure, that's like the first thing where you're like, yeah, but I can't see, like, automatically the trust is lost.
It was tough. And then you would see the comments, right? And the internet is like brutal. So we saw the comments, and mind you, it was still like a minority. It was like the ads were beautiful and the story came across, but the reality is that we're not even ready to be getting AI ads, to be honest, right? Like, and this was like a year ago. So starting Mid-Journey and starting this whole craziness, like, we were definitely not ready for that yet. So you need to read the room and be like, yeah, I don't know if it's sensitive, man. It's very
sometimes
sensitive.
you get carried away in the AI, man, because it's like you almost so many capabilities, and you're just so like, what if I do this?
I'm an AI, like, I don't know where it's gonna go, and some of the companies are making like shady moves with it. Adobe is making some like weird stuff. You're not sponsored by Adobe, but all of them are doing that, right? So like, I use one that's called Ideogram, and that one's amazing, right? But now they just switched it up, and I just like double the price for the same thing, and now went to credits because it's booming so much. So it's gonna get wild, right? But it's a really good tool to be free, man. Just be free. I love collage style, like bridging 2D and 3D elements, and kind of like a little bit of vintage and a little bit of texture. I love that, and now I can accomplish way more with the tools that I have, way faster, right? Whereas before, I had to rely on way more people to do those things. Now those people can be doing more of what they want inside of like the agency, for example, and we can take some of that back. Like, I mean, if you're a 3D artist, like some of my friends are, you would rather be working on like an ad, let's say, like a video ad or like a good like music video or something like that, than on social media reels, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of like the work. The same way that like I love doing email marketing, for example, but it's email marketing, right? There's only so much that you can do for it. There's certain rules. It doesn't need to break the wheel. So if I could get my emails to look 10 times better at a fraction of a price, and I don't have to get my guy to give me a render of the product and give me this new render or give me this or give me that, and I can make that faster, he doesn't have to worry about that, and he can go crazy on the ad. And then like, you bring up the quality, man, overall. Just, careful with the 6 fingers, careful with the weird eyes. They have a lot of weird eyes, and my advice is just know where and how you're using it,
I think what's great about it, at least like now in the beginning, that it allows you to like, it reverses like your brain, where like when you are having a prompt or like trying to come up with something crazy or whatever, you're having to like, how would I explain this to somebody? How would I tell the computer like what's in my brain? So like you're almost training your mind to like express your thoughts more clear.
Yeah.
Which
And faster,
sometimes you're
right?
not even thinking about that. You're just like, oh, I'm gonna open my computer and start.
Yeah, I use them a lot for like mood boarding.
Yeah.
For sure. Just like make things out, right? Or like do silly things. And it's amazing. And you know, that's just the mid journeys and the ideograms and all that. But even like ChatGPT, you know, use it a lot for personal things. I like using it in the following, like among many uses, right? I like creating a project for like either a client or myself of something specific, and I like feeding it with information that I'm kind of like compiled on them, or like things that are necessary there. And then that will help me with the voice, or kind of like the way that it kind of like goes and remembers. So that's super useful, because what that does is like I can start brainstorming and have a partner to brainstorm with, and then I can become kind of like the tastemaker there. That's the fancy word or whatever, right? But you really do become that. You kind of like give me 50 examples of this, and then like 49 are gonna suck, but then one of them is kind of like, oh, that's good. It's almost there. It's missing a word, and then suddenly, boom, you got it. So it just changes the way that you do things a little bit. And then on another way that I handle it a lot is, let's say that I'm doing a strategy, right? And I'm kind of like already thinking of like certain taglines or certain ideas for like the campaign and all that. And I have it, but I haven't found the specific ways of like putting it in like into paper, right? To say it in a way. I just go in there and I start having a conversation. Boom, hey, this is what I have. This is what I put together. I wanted to feel like this. I want to do like that. And then it'll do its own thing, and it'll give me a lot of different options. And again, a lot of the options are going to be silly. Some might not even work, but always in there, if you're paying attention, you'll find something that is aligned with what you were thinking already. And I think that that's the best use for that. And I don't know if you knew this, and then maybe like shout out, but like there's silly things like you will never need to use another software to make yourself QR codes. You can just do it with ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
You like silly things like that, like where before you had to like go around places and like go online. And it's like, oh, but it's PNG. It doesn't give you the SVG unless you like, you know, hey chat, just get me this URL, get me a QR code in SVG format. That guy will give it to you, and you're like, success.
Now, even one thing I started doing the other day that I was like mind blowing, but it's fun, but it's just like something so small that like has an impact in real life. I started taking photos of like my daughter or my dog or whatever, and turning it into coloring book pages, but like instantly. And you tell it like, hey, make the lines a little thicker, and it's like a perfect coloring book, and you just print it out.
Through what are you making that?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
And then you hook it up to your printer, print it out, and you can even, I'm gonna make like a coloring book and just staple them.
So yeah, man. I mean, dude, that's amazing.
And then I give it to my daughter, and her mind's blown.
Yeah,
because it's like her, and she's like, oh shit, like I'm gonna color.
Dude, how old is she, by the way?
2.5.
Oh man, how's that been?
It's been insane, dude.
Yeah?
Insane. She's a little person already. Like,
Oh man, love that.
yeah, man.
Definitely getting the itches. We're back at home. We're kind of like, let's just build a business. Let's just get a puppy, and then like let's get it.
Yeah, but it's then you build a business, and then it's like, I wish I would have done it sooner, because it's like
That's what happened to my old boss. She dedicated a lot of years to building a bit, and she did it, and she built it, and she built a great business, like a big one. But she felt it, and then she had to go through through IVF and stuff like that, and she was able to have a beautiful boy, and like but she would say like we had a good relationship, and she would say that it's kind of like, I wish I would have done it sooner, like 100%, because now I don't know, she was uncertain, and then when she had it, it was amazing.
No, and it's just like you're like, damn, I wish I was younger now.
Yeah,
you want to
do that.
Spend more
That's
time.
why I'm working out like really hard right now, man.
Well, how do you like balance all that? Because it's hard, like especially when you have a kid, but even without a kid is when you have so many hats you're wearing, and then you got to stay on top of your health.
Balance is crazy.
Even your own work too, like your personal brand, like all that stuff.
Do you have personal brands? Oh man, no, not even.
This is my personal brand right here. That's how I do it.
Same. I'll tell you a little quick on that actually, but dude, how do you balance that? That's a lot, right?
There is no balance.
There is no balance.
It's managing.
I mean, it's you just need to stay flexible and stay resilient, right? At least my experience. I just finished. This is a little bit random, right? But it makes sense. I just finished. Me and my wifey, we finished 75 Hard, which is like the
I did
2
it
months
last
and a
year.
half. Yeah, you did it.
Crazy.
My first time doing it. Super nice, super good. But that's the type of experience that when you do it, you realize that It's just the repetition, right? It's what gets to you. Even if you love it, even if you want to do it, it's just like some days you're just gonna fault, and then you need to learn how to like keep going after that. And I think that a lot of balance turns out it's like that. Like I don't see balance anymore as kind of like, oh, I need to have certain hours of this or this or that. It's kind of like, no, just certain things need to happen, and some are gonna happen on cue, and some are not gonna happen. And then it's just gamified to where it's kind of like, can I make it like this, right? Can I fit all these things into my plate and do it, right? And then have fun with it. Have a little bit of fun with it. Like, as much as you, even if you don't like what you're doing at the moment, you need to kind of like gamify it a little bit. At least that's how it works for me, because it helps me focus. There is no there's no solution. Man.
It is kind of like, I like to do that too, like making it a game. Like, all right, like
it works.
Like, let me try to plug this in here, and then I'll have time for this here, and then you kind of play Tetris, and then see, not overbook yourself, but see if you could do it. But
and you fail a lot. Like I failed the first time. So after I quit the last agency work that I had that wasn't in-house, right? I did like 6-8 months of freelance. And I quit the place because there was a lot of things that I just needed to move forward with, and I wanted to do my own thing. And I had a couple of clients that we're working with, and my whale client, the client that was kind of like, paying the bills and everything. I was working with them for 6 months, building the brand and helping them, and it was a great success. But I was working remote, and this was like right after COVID and all that. I never worked remote in that scenario. And very quickly, dude, like it just became a problem of like, wow, like all this freedom is not that good. Like it's not as advertised, like you start getting not lazy, but you know that you have the freedom to do certain things. So you cut a corner here, you cut a corner there. It's kind of like, I'm just gonna wake up and go straight to work. I'm not gonna wake up earlier and like have my routine or have that. I'm just gonna wake up at 9 and get to work. Or like, hey, I worked really hard yesterday. I'm gonna work at night tonight because I have something in the day, right? And then you start messing with the formulas and messing with the stuff, right? And that's where it gets crazy. That's where it gets where like you realize there is no real balance, right? Sometimes you need to go and do the thing that you need to do, and sometimes you need to be flexible enough to not like what you're doing and enjoy it anyways, right? And have that discipline.
Oh, that's what the 75 hard teaches you.
It'll do it. That'll do it.
It's
for
like
you.
sometimes
That'll do
I was like
you.
sick, like maybe 5 or 6 days throughout the whole thing, where I was just like, but it was later on, so I was like, nah, I can't.
Brutal. My sciatica, is that how you say it in English? My sciatica, that got messed up midway through for like a whole week. Brutal. Could not sleep. I was doing one of the workouts, was walking 45 minutes, and the other one was at the gym. I just couldn't. I was walking the whole day, right? Because I couldn't like move around. I couldn't do that, and that just makes it way harder. But then you do it,
And you're like, okay,
right? And you're
do
like,
it.
damn, I can kind of like do that. And then you also realize if you're keeping an open mind through things like that, you realize that you got it in you. You got a lot in you, right? Like you're not gonna be perfect. Like there's still days where it's kind of like I almost missed something. Like the day I almost messed it up, I almost forgot to read, and I had to wake up like at 11:30 at night, like.
Wow, 30 minutes on the clock.
I'm like, let's go. Let's do the 10-page. Thankfully, it was a good book to read, right? But like, you can slip up, and in real life, you don't have anything to get you back. And because you don't have that motivation, you might not get to do that, right? You might not do the reading that night. And take away reading and say, put anything else in there, right? But it's more about like, come on, man, like just a little extra push, just get it going. And like 75 hard and all these things help you kind of like with that extra push. Like you don't want to do it, you're tired, it's day 60, but that's it, like just read, just walk, just I don't know, just
and then it makes everything else seem like nothing. Like, oh, dealing with this client, like, bro, that's
Absolutely.
I can do that easy.
Absolutely. It's brutal, but it's really like a teaching lesson. Absolutely.
I recommend that to everyone if you could do it, but I mean, you gotta plan it. I think the sweet spot is like after summer, right before Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Yeah.
If you could do it like that, that's what I found.
That's brutal, man. That's brutal. I think that so we did it from so we just finished now on the 20th, right? June 20th. So go back a little bit more than that. It was great timing because you don't have any of the special things happening. Like you're saying, like Christmas and all that. You definitely need to prep. You definitely need to prep because it's tough, man. And like the first week, you might be a little bit tired, like or this or that, but it's more about the accumulation of all the work. And like if you're having suddenly we had a very busy season with work, and then we have the ups and downs of entrepreneurship in the middle of 75 hard. And dude, it's brutal. It's brutal. You were not. I did not go out. Like my friends did not know about me a lot because like the little energy that I had to be like I need to rest or I need to like cook or
Man,
something.
it helps you prioritize things. You realize, okay, like if I really do want to do something, I could do it. It's just about making the time for what's important.
Absolutely. And it. So I don't use a watch, right? I've always been kind of like that. I don't like keeping my time, and that's been one of my biggest struggles as a professional, to be honest. Like I don't like working like that, like under time pressure or like things like that. In terms of like I need to be here at 12:30 and I leave in at 12:45 and then I want to have this and I have that, but you do need to implement some of that thinking into your life if you want to do more things, right? So I had to find, and 75 Hard was amazing and kind of like solidifying that attitude a lot, where you need to find the way to do it, right? And then you, at the beginning, you have all this friction. You're kind of like, man, why do I need to do this? I don't have time for anything. I literally have to like time everything out. If I don't hit the gym at 6, then I cannot do the walk and then I cannot eat and then it just becomes a mess. By halfway through that, you're at a place where you can get in a rhythm and you stop arguing with yourself, right? And when you stop arguing with yourself and you're kind of like, oh, do I do it? Do I not do it? I'll do it later. I'll do it 5 minutes. If you can get yourself to just get up and do stuff, that's it. That's all you need to learn from. I mean, in my honest
That's what they
opinion.
say, like discipline equals freedom, which
Absolutely.
just sounds counterintuitive.
Super
but
counterintuitive. I hated that phrase when I was a kid because I was kind of like, no, freedom equals freedom. And I want to wake up when I want to wake up and do it, whatever, and I'm a night owl, so I've always felt with like waking up early in the morning, even though I did it. But then you realize that, yeah, man,
it gives you the freedom to do what you want.
It does, because like, maybe it's not cool in certain ways because, I can only see, this is an example of my real life, right? We've had to start planning like the days that we go out with friends or we meet family because it's a lot. So like I'd spent 3 months and I haven't seen my dad, or like, we haven't gone visit like La Suegra and West Palm, or like I haven't even seen my friends. So it's kind of like the only solution that I found to it is like planning, bro. Yeah, sometimes I have the full month and it's like I'm really adulting at this point, right? But like you have the full month plan ahead, but I can guarantee that I'm gonna make it that night, right? And then when you start getting the hang of it, and then also the people involved also understand it, porque tú sabes, some people you can never make plans with anyways. But when you kind of like get it in there, you kind of like, you can do way more. I can see my dad, I can do this, I can actually do that. I can sit down and play video games if I want to, because like, I have a little bit of a leeway of space here on the weekend. I don't know, it becomes very RPG, very cool like that.
No, and it's that's high level adulting. Like once you're an adult, crazy. You realize that like things won't happen unless you plan.
I imagine with a baby, with a daughter, you gotta like go on
high level, dude. You have to. It's impossible, and then because you have to account for a kid. It's not just like get up and leave.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave you with this last question I like to ask everybody. What does creativity mean to you?
I should have been ready for this one. I think like creativity is kind of like just part of the human condition. I think that creativity is the ability of bringing to life things that were not there before. And that might sound as exciting or as boring as it can sound, right? Because you can be a very creative accountant, you can be a very creative lawyer, you can, it's and that's why I love about design. It's the problem solving that makes you creative, right? And finding different paths to the same goal that make you creative, and solutions to problems. Because at the end of the day, everything, I feel like as a species, right? Like what makes us really different is like the ability that we have to do more things, create more things, right? Every animal has their own like routines and tools that they have to their arsenal. We can just add more tools and create more things. So that's what creativity is to me. It's just that human ability that we have to like put something that's not there together and just like building it, just building and giving birth to it. That's probably it.
I love that, bro. Yo, thank you for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, dude. Amazing. Make sure to plug in your Instagram and your agency Instagram.
All right, so we are called Rebelberry. We just launched socials. It's Rebelberry Co. Website is coming, but right now we're really focusing on servicing the clients that we have and just like building these relationships, and just kind of like, give us a follow. Definitely give us a follow. We'll definitely love that. We want our socials and our web experience to not be salesy at all. We want it to be a place to explore new things and teach a lot of people. I would love to have an inch of the influence that Chris Do has had in the world. Just like an inch of that, because, you know, him and guys like Ben Burns and like the guys from Matthew Messina, and then you when you start learning about these amazing creators out there, right? And then now you guys are in the same path, right? Where we're all trying to build things outside of our own, right? And that's what I really want to do with the agency and with just anything. You know, I want you to be able to go in there and like learn a little bit, have a little bit of fun, and then, you know, it's our personal brand in a lot of ways, more than just the agency. So thank you for having me.
Appreciate it,
pleasure,
bro.
Man.
Thank you, man. That was awesome.